Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 85. I'm your host, David J. Murphy, with my co-host, Zach Roberts.
Hello. How goes it?
Ron Hamilton. And Ron Hamilton.
Aloha from Hawaii. That's right, aloha. Like, subscribe, give 5-star rating.
Around the Lens is a live weekly visual journalism roundtable show coming at you every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Like I said, I'm your host, David J. Murphy. We do this show and talk about visual journalism and all kinds of fun stuff. If you're interested in following the show, please go to our Twitter page, go to our Facebook page, go to our website, www.aroundthelens.com. You can follow us on Twitter at AroundLens. You can find us on Facebook at AtL Podcast. You can find us on YouTube as well. Just search for Around the Lens. So we're on all those platforms. Really appreciate your patronage and subscriptions and likes and follows. It really helps grow the show audience, and we really appreciate that. So tonight we got a lot of good topics we're going to talk about. Let's introduce our returning panelist, Aaron Sinek. Aaron, please tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, guys. I am Aaron Sinek. I am a journalist out of Chicago, Illinois. Mostly what I do, I'm a regular contributor on politics to chicagoist.com, but also I have freelanced for more places than I can remember at this point. And most recently, I am actually just getting home from seeing the Gathering of the Juggalos, which is a music festival music festival all about the Insane Clown Posse, which took place in Oklahoma City. So I'm like literally fresh home today. So how's it going?
Welcome. Glad you made it. By the way, how many places can you remember, I wonder?
I don't know. I'll have to look.
See, all I want to do is make a joke about the fact that Oklahoma City hasn't had an event like this since. Oh wait, okay, forget it. I won't make that joke.
I think that was going in the wrong direction there, Zach. What is it like to go to an Insane Clown Posse event exactly? What is it like to be around Juggalos? Because I've never been, and I probably never will. So, what was your experience like?
The full story that I've been writing and everything is coming out tomorrow. But I can just say that there are a lot of preconceived notions that I had going into it as somebody who's at least followed the subculture forever now. Especially because in a lot of the reporting you see the craziest shit, and there is crazy shit. I mean, there was a regular 4 a.m. quarter stick of dynamite that went off somewhere. In that park like clockwork. There are a lot of people with makeup, face paint. There's plenty of drugs available. But the most interesting thing is it really is like a very tight knit, loyal, very misfit family in that a lot of these folks don't got a lot of money. They come from rough backgrounds, and they really despite the kind of like super harsh exterior where you've seen some of the crazy shit already, they really do care about each other, and they are of course rabid fans of the band and all the other type of music connected to it. But it was interesting to just sort of see like experience it for 4 whole days. And I got to know a lot of people, and I actually felt a lot of different, a lot of connections with folks. And so that was super cool. Some of them could probably use better tattoo artists. I've got a lot of pictures of some really cool tattoos, and then a lot of pictures of some really like rough poke and sticks, but it's still it like any other subculture and any other music scene. I grew up in the punk and hardcore scenes. I see so many similarities between folks who either are outcasts or consider them outcasts, and so it's not really as I don't know. Everybody was super cool. Like nobody was a dick to me, with the one exception of there was a trolley that went around the whole venue that you could just hop on and just to get from one place to another because it was such a long walk around everything. And trolley full of like really, really fucked up people.
Okay, so I should put a A warning there. Let's take out the language. Just
Okay,
so
sorry,
I don't get an issue on any sort of you know.
Can't bleep them.
You're right, dude.
This is live.
Okay. Remember where I've been hanging out for the past 4 days? But a trolley full of people who were really messed up on some substances rolled by, and one dude yelled at me that I looked like a cop. So everyone else on the trolley booed me and cursed at me, even though I am totally not one. That was about the most like.
That's exactly what a cop would say, Aaron.
Good point.
Wait, Aaron, are you a police officer? Because you have to tell us if I ask you.
If I am, this is the longest con in the history of cons.
Hey, you know,
yeah, it was
deep undercover for their entire lives.
Do you know? Are they still considered? Because weren't they listed as a like a terrorist group for a while?
They are still considered a gang, and this that was actually a contributing factor to a lot of the. There were a lot of differences between this year and previous years in that law enforcement had a much heavier handed presence. Part of that, I think, is because, you know, it really said that had at least some kind of effect in that they were literally like, you know, normally in other places they've been, they're not exactly welcome. It's private property, so they can't really force their way on. But this time around, they were flying a chopper overhead every afternoon.
Oh my God.
Which was met with like volleys of middle fingers and whatnot. But then they had like streams of squad cars that would like pour in every now and again and like, you know, just kind of drive around and everything. And so a lot of the kind of like zanier stuff that you see, the nudity, open use of drugs, and those kinds of things was really tampered down because people were getting arrested for things. And they're so used to being able to just do whatever they want that it was kind of, that was kind of what created a really bad vibe, you know, because it was a lot of, like anything else, there's a lot of people coming up to you saying like, yo, man, the cops are here. You know, be careful. This is happening. That's happening. You know, we can't do this. We can't do that. You know, and that kind of put a damper on things for folks. But I think that had a lot to do with the gang classification. And in fact, if you go to Muckrack, there are some Freedom of Information Act requests that a couple of different people have done where you could find communications, and there are a lot of them. I mean, these files are deep from the Denver police that just got published pretty recently, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I can't believe this has been around for 18 years. That's crazy.
Yep, 18 years.
Oh my goodness. So this started when I graduated from high school. To think, had my life taken another turn, I may have been a juggalo. Probably not.
We all could have been juggalos in a
We all could have been. We all could have been.
Deep down inside, aren't we all?
It'd be a very, very different podcast if we were all juggalos.
I don't know. Let's put the. Oh, I wish the YouTube had like, or the like you can have little face masks. They can have like juggalo face masks, you know, digital.
instead of like a puppy nose, like Snapchat, you can have like a full. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, glad you made it out of there alive, and let's get on with the show. We got a lot of show to talk about, and our main topic this evening is going to be all about finances, the exciting world of finances, and hopefully a guest Ron has lined up for us will be able to make it for that portion. We'll push that back towards the end to give him more time to show up if he shows up. But let's start with our first topic, always talking about visual journalism. And I think I love it when the topics in the news are like core visual journalism topics or relate to journalism, because I think that's what we're all about. You know, that's what the core of the show is, talking about the news that affects visual journalism. So anyways, and ACLU objects after Capitol Hill police tell journalists to delete protest photos. So this is a story from Common Dreams, breaking news and views for the progressive community. And basically, the story here is that some photographers were taking photographs of demonstrators, and some police told them to delete their photographs. And, you know, the ACLU is saying, you know, you can't do that. That's not allowed. That's against all kinds of different freedom of speech and all this fun stuff. So what do we think about this? Is this indicative of the overall environment within DC? I mean, you know, Zach, you can probably speak to your experience in DC, and we talked about this during the inauguration, but it seems like, again, a group that is not used to or able to deal with the media, it seems, somehow, right?
And Shay Horse can obviously attest to this much better than I can, as he and the ACLU currently have a lawsuit going against the DC police. And you can check out I did a hour-long interview with Shay. It's posted on our website, and he was on the show around that same time too. We posted some of his photos that he took. But the DC police seems to have made a distinct change in the last year, possibly even less than that, possibly like since Trump was literally inaugurated, like as in this starting day and then on. Because I mean, previous experiences with DC police, and I usually only drop into DC when there's large protests or activism or anything like that. I don't cover the Capitol. I've never actually gotten a Senate press pass or anything like that, or I've never applied, so I've never had to cover it. So I can't really speak to it. But there's been a lot of weird things going on in DC this year when it comes down to. The Republican Party tried to stop press from being able to ask questions in the halls, claiming safety concerns. And even to the credit of many members of the Republican Party, they spoke out against that and called it ridiculous. So like literally it was, I think, revoked like by the end of the day. DC police have been considerably different the way that they've reacted this year to even violent protests. I don't like to use the word violent, like things that they would qualify as riots or whatever, like like breaking Starbucks windows and stuff like that. They used to kind of like allow it to some extent. Now they're getting very much more of a New York City police department vibe. But they have different powers because I don't know the different, like near Washington D.C. is this weird no man's land, yet federal, yet city, yet state sort of like policy land. So I'm not quite sure where the DC police lie in the whole gamut of thing, whether they're direct comparison to like NYPD or Chicago PD. But they seem to be taking quite a larger iron hand when it comes to the press. And in this case, in my understanding, I've seen the tweets and a couple other things after it. So it was a journalist who was taking photos of protests, like it always had, and the DC police claimed that he photo zone or something, which doesn't really exist. That's not a thing. Like maybe like some basement in the Pentagon. But not out in not in the Capitol area. And anyway, the thing is, the police try this all the time. I've had police try to say to delete things. I'm sure anyone who's covered protests who's like delete that or something like that. I mean, I'm sure there's been instances, whether it be private security, police, or whatever else. But you don't have to. The problem is that when you're confronted by someone who has a firearm, a taser, pepper spray, and handcuffs, matter. Because in that moment, the police or the security officer can do whatever they want. So often they don't have to deal with the consequences later, but you do. You're going to be detained, and you're not going to do the rest of the days of your work. So sometimes you do. I've never deleted anything. But I know that other journalists, make the momentary decision, go, this is not worth the rest of my day. I'll delete the video clip, I'll delete the photo and move on, and not spend my entire day in a paddy wagon, because that's usually what they'll just, box you up. So I don't know, Aaron, do you have any experiences either with DC or, such things?
Yeah, I do. First off, of course, I think it's reprehensible and terrible and all of that, as you would expect. But there's a couple of times, the most recent I could think of, and again, I had a similar response where you know, I ended up complying because, again, it's a person with a gun and a taser and a baton and handcuffs and the power to lock you up in jail who already doesn't like you. But there have been several protests here in Chicago outside of various jails, very specifically Cook County Jail and the Juvenile Detention Center. And at one at the Juvenile Detention Center, you can actually get a lot closer to that than you can Cook County Jail. There's no like big razor wire or anything in front of it. And so a lot of protesters, you know, who are, you know, talking about, you know, the school to prison pipeline and things like that, you know, that jail is a symbol of that. So they'll go there, they'll have rallies and demonstrations and things like that. And at the very top of it, you can actually see, you know, you see these windows where people are housed. And anytime people are out there, the people on the inside will like put their hands up and bang on the windows. And, you know, if you've got the right lens and you know, the sun's in the right position, you can get a cool shot of that. Anytime I've been there, anytime a camera has been pointed up there, the cops immediately come at you. And multiple times they've been like, you need to delete these photos. That's, you know, and they give you some kind of song and dance when you're like, hey, I'm literally on a, you know, on a public sidewalk. Go fuck your, oh, I'm sorry. Go, please, you know, I'm on a public sidewalk. It's perfectly legal for me to do this. You know, they give you pushback, and eventually, you know, again, are you, you know, it's all about, you know, how much do you want to risk, right? You know, so I've seen that in those cases, and especially in Illinois, there have been, there was a big, there are a lot of different articles and misinformation that went around a couple of years back. I want to say it was right around 2013 or 2014. And it was because like some clickbait headlines went up as to, you know, that were poorly aggregated stories about, you know, it being completely illegal to photograph a police officer in public at all in Illinois, which is not the case. You know, and there's a lot of sorting out to that to do, but, you know, it is in fact legal as long as you're not interfering with their job. And so the kind of thing that, you know, sometimes they'll try to, you know, say or do or whatever is, you know, and usually it's more along the lines of like, many people try to, you know, say delete your footage. It's more along the lines of if you're in their way, they're just going to try to arrest you or hit you. Yeah. At least here in Chicago. But it definitely has happened a couple of times where it's, you know, been like, you know, you need to delete this or you need to delete that. I mean, once I was shooting B-roll in front of Cook County Jail, and that is a thing no one should ever do. Let me tell you, they really hate that. Like, even though there is a public park across the street, they swarmed us, and we're like, what are you doing? You can't be here. And luckily at the time we played the dumb artist, you know, the dumb art school student card. And as I was talking, you know, and I was very concerned that they were going to take our cards or, you know, delete our footage or whatever, or demand we delete our footage. So as I'm talking to them, my partner who was there cleverly pulled the card and it disappeared, and no one ever asked, and they were just kind of like, oh, get out of here or whatever. But it was really like, oh, okay, you know, all right, whatever. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen this kind of thing, and it definitely does really, you know, when they come at you like that, I mean, it's indicative of this administration and everything this administration has been trying to do, which is, you know, intimidate the press. Probably one of their #1 goals.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Aaron, you know, or maybe Ron, let me throw it to you. Have you ever had anybody ask you to delete your photos or your video?
Yes, sir. How many times?
Dozens.
You know,
literally dozens.
One time we were in San Antonio, headed down to the Texas border in Mexico, and coming back, and we were doing a documentary on Brownsville and McAllen, Texas. That was the story. So we're down there and we're shooting video. Back in those days, it was VX2000. We had tape. We had tape back then, and I went down there with another girl from the station and a friend. And the friend that was coming with us was recently married. She was from the Philippines, She was recently married to an American citizen in Texas, and I had shot the wedding. So she came along with us for this trip to Brownsville, and we went down Brownsville. On the way back up, if you don't know this about border areas, Border Patrol patrols not only the border, but like 100 miles north of the border as well, something like that.
Yeah.
So we're coming back from this documentary, and they stopped us and said, "Is everybody here American citizens?" "Of course we are. Let us in. What's wrong with you?" They said, "Pull over here, please." We pulled over. Turns out that the girl that had just got married had not filed her paperwork yet, and as a matter of fact, her visa had expired. So we were delayed by the Border Patrol, and my camera girl there with us there, she takes her VX2000, starts videotaping the Border Patrol area. The Border Patrol guy.
No.
And I'm freaking out, and I don't want to make a big deal about it because I don't want to draw attention to her, but I'm sending mental thoughts to her. Please stop recording. Please stop recording.
Yeah.
So the Border Patrol guy comes over and says, "Hey, give me that camera." And I said, "Give him the camera." Now, I'm not one to give in so easily. However, they do have a friend of ours inside the Border Patrol. They may not let back out if we give them any trouble. So, well, all in all,
the Border DH. I mean, I don't know if this was pre-DHS.
Well, not back then. No, it was Border Patrol back then. This was 19.
It was just Border Patrol. Yeah, I mean, now they have they're like, I don't even know what the equivalent is. Like they're just like their own whole different level of force. They're beyond even the TSA on their abilities and without being able to compliance. I mean, they just recently shot a guy across the border. It was 2-3 years ago. They shot a guy from the American side, shot a Mexican on the Mexican border side, and nothing ever happened of it. And it's like, but yeah, no, I've heard enough horror stories from Border Patrol because they can just search everything and they can detain you until the end of the sun.
Right. We didn't want that to happen.
Yeah. I thank God that tape doesn't exist anymore. Because I had my own experience with tape. I was filming. Surprisingly, I actually wasn't filming it. I was filming near a what they called back during the Bush years a CAVIP, a critical infrastructure vulnerability point, which was the Exxon Mobil refinery down in New Orleans. And I was filming. There's actually a slave quarters that still was in existence, and it was like had a plaque and everything like that. And I was filming it for a piece of like I think it was 2 years after Katrina that I was filming, and private security guards came over and detained me for an hour or 45 minutes, and kept asking me questions, were investigating me and doing the whole thing because they thought I was filming the CAVIP across the street, the refinery across the street, which hilariously, the same exact thing happened to the guy I worked for, Greg Palast. The FBI investigated him because he was filming in a Katrina camp where they put people after Katrina, and they've put them right across the street from a Baton Rouge Exxon refinery. And the FBI called us 2 weeks later saying it was difficult to find us, which is hilarious. Considering there's a website with my boss's name on it called gregpalace.com. And I guess they couldn't find us that way. But during Occupy Wall Street, there was a couple stories about where they deleted footage from different journalists. If you were arrested, they would go to your camera and then delete the cards. That happened like 2 or 3 times, and for NYPD. And so when I was arrested, what I actually did is I had a wrist brace on for carpal tunnel issues. Before I was handcuffed, I took a bunch of photos, and then of me being basically sitting down and being detained. And then I slid the cards into my wrist brace, which I knew had a metal like piece in it. So that when I went through metal detectors or anything else, they'd be hidden there. And then once I went through the arrest process, I slipped them into the bottom of my shoe, or slipped them into my sock, because I saw that they were waving metal wands, and I thought that they were going to make me take off the wrist brace, and I saw that they were taking off shoes. So I had them in my sock until basically I got out of prison, out of a holding cell 11 hours later, And I guess they'd actually finally stopped doing it, so I did it all for naught. But still, that it's it's crazy. I mean, now that everything's digital, I mean, at least I guess with film they could do it. They could just open up the back and that was the end of it. I mean, but now with digital, on my video camera, I have, which is something that if I'm ever recording anything risky where I'm in that situation, I have a 2-card slot, which means that I can record to both simultaneously. And my cameraman actually once, in early days when he had one of those, an early Sony camera that had the SD card slots and 2 of them, he did that. He actually was filming to both slots and then offered up. There's I forget who it was, which group it was that wanted the cards. They weren't happy with us filming in the area, so he just immediately just like, here you go. I'm really sorry about that. Here's the card. Delete it. You want it, whatever. And in the meantime, he just slipped the backup card like into his pocket or something like that, and then it wasn't a problem. We still had the footage. So yeah.
Yeah, we got our tape back. They taped over the Border Patrol portion, but they gave us the rest of our documentary rather than take our whole tape. Yeah, that was nice of them.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like about the Panasonic GH5 that I happen to own. It has 2 memory card slots. As a matter of fact, I do. I don't have it in arm's length, unfortunately.
You should mention that more often so we know these things.
Here you go. Here's my Nikon right here. Look at those 2-card slot. Yep, that's actual real camera. See, real
camera, shoot 4K. All right then.
Oh,
yeah. All right then. Anyway,
here's my other one. JVC right here.
Oh, okay. I guess in the future we all carry around 2 cameras. If only there was one. If only there were cameras that had both video and photo in one camera. Oh, then we would be set. Oh, the future, someday. Anyways, I don't think I've ever been told. What's that? I
said the JVC has the same size sensor, and if I shoot 4K, I can just do a screenshot, so it's not a problem.
There you go. I think, I can't think of any times when I've been told or ordered to delete what I've shot in a present, like in an official capacity shooting. I mean, most of the stuff I shot was pretty benign anyways. I've known people who shot stuff that was, and again, we're talking from a military perspective here, stuff that was like classified, maybe secret or something. And what happens is when you shoot something, that has that kind of content on it, you obviously can't just, like, that memory card is now tainted forever. So it's like if you photograph something and it's a secret or top secret thing, like that memory card is now has to go into a vault and it has to be locked away, and it has to be it's a controlled item, including the imagery that's on there, because flash memory has latent, ability to store data. I'm sure you can, you go up to somebody, hey, let me I'll format my card in front of you, right? And look, it's formatted, and then you go back and you download some format software, and you're good to go. So that's why whenever that happens, that memory card has to go into a vault, and it's there forever until the imagery gets declassified or whatever. But that's kind of how the classification side works, in case anybody is curious. But actually, the one of the things that like Combat Camera has to prove is that essentially the cameras don't have any way to store imagery like on them, like for long term, besides just like maybe a preview or something. So that way, unfortunately, or if they didn't have that capability to delete the imagery, then you'd see like, oh, well, got to throw that camera into storage now because, there's some latent imagery on there. Oh, but thankfully they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But anyways, I've never had to delete, or if I have, I can't remember. It's not been anything significant. So I just don't go around shooting things that, are going to get me in trouble. Most of the time, though, I've had people irritated with me if I took pictures of them. I remember I was in Jamaica one time, and I was just filming some video. I was waiting for, we were waiting for a bus. We were on a vacation. I was just filming some video of the city center. Nothing particular, no individual person. I was just scanning the camera across the scene, and this dude walking across the, in my field of view comes up to me and like starts questioning me about what when I'm filming. And I don't know, I just kind of told him some BS answer to get him away from me, or try not to. I just stopped filming and whatever, and to kind of, because he looked like he was going to get riled up. And yeah, being in a foreign country, where you have like not assurances about everything, it's best to kind of err on the side of caution, especially when you're dealing with the local populace. If they come up to you and they give you a hard time, because you don't know exactly who they are, what they're going to do, especially in something like a third world country, which Jamaica is. I mean, it's it tries to be first world, but I think it's probably more second world. But I think it's a lot of it is still considered a third world country. So you got to be careful whenever you're in a situation like that. And and worse, I think in some places you shoot, they may ask for money after you take their picture or shoot some video of them or something like that. Which if you can afford it, I guess you can throw them a buck or something. It's like their day salary, pretty much, in certain places. But I don't know. Have any of you ever paid someone to take their picture, or not paid them, but like in certain like travels, like sometimes people ask for money because they know that they're photogenic, or you want that like picture of the villager in the countryside, and they're like, sir, can you donate a little money?
Yeah, what I do is I don't do that, but when I'm in the Philippines and I'm in the rural sections and I want to get some good shots, what I'll do is I'll buy stuff from the vendors and things like that. I'll make myself a friendly kind of guy, so they leave me alone and they think I'm just a great guy to come over there and spend time with. But I don't out and out pay for photographs now.
Right. Yeah, I mean that could be a whole ethics thing, in of itself.
I've done it for I've done it for non-photojournalistic photos. Like I'm in New Orleans and there's a guy on the street playing guitar, playing blues or something like that, and I just ask him at once he's done. I'm like, hey, can I take your photo? And he asks, it's like, hey, yeah, $5, $2 or something like that. I'm like, no problem. I would have tipped you anyway for the music, but yeah, sure, I'll do it for the for the photo, because I mean, he's out there making money, and that's the purpose why he's out there. So I don't feel bad about it. I wouldn't use those photos for photojournalism purposes or anything other than travel portrait sort of stuff. But yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Aaron, yourself?
No, actually, I haven't been really confronted with that. I think the closest situation is pretty much exactly what Zach just described, where you see a busker and you're like, oh, let's get a photo of him. And of course, again, I was gonna drop some cash into the guitar case anyway. And really, those photos, they weren't for a story or anything. But no, I've never been confronted with somebody who said, you took my picture, you give me money, yet at least.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say, let's turn it to you, Zach. Let's say some publication hired you to do buskers of New York City or something like that, and you're going out there and you're taking pictures of buskers or whatever. Obviously, it's for journalistic purposes. And you get that busker is like, yo, dog, you gonna take some pictures? Why don't you drop some cash into my guitar case? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna say to him? Be like, no, this is for a publication. I'm getting paid to do this, and that would be unethical, sir. First, I will see you. Have a good day.
What year are you from? If he said "yo dog" to me, be like, are you from like the mid '90s, early '90s?
What's
like, what are we doing here? Like, is this? Are you like on a Will Smith show? Like, no, but
excuse me, sir. Would you mind dropping a few pennies into my my ball cap there? We're gonna go back in time. Might as well go all the way back.
What was it? It's like, give me a hay penny. What was it?
Could you rub 2 nickels together?
Yes. Yeah. But I that actually, because I know, at least I would know that it would be potentially a problem. It's something I would discuss with with my editor first, and just be like, hey, you've ever taken photos of these guys, of anybody who's out there, working. Okay, it sounds bad, working the streets, but working on the streets, whether it be whatever form of whether it be music or whatever, you know, that's physically what they're out there for. And, you know, you taking their photo, I understand it's, you know, them, it's you taking a photo of their performance. It's almost like though I do have a slightly different feeling about it, is the guys that dress up in branded costumes, like in Times Square or in Hollywood, and demand, if you take a photo of them, demand like $5 or $2 or whatever their fee is.
Right.
That I have a different feeling with, because those guys have actually attacked photographers before who refused to pay, who are just taking photos of them. I've had some near run-ins, near issues with them, because in Times Square there's a lot of just protests, and like I have this one of my favorite shots I've ever taken is in Times Square, and it was a Guantanamo Bay protest. So you have all these guys in orange jumpsuits, and Batman is there, and Batman's in the shot. And it's fantastic, and that I took his photo, and I kind of just, the moment he like kind of made eye contact with me, I like just booked out of the area. I kind of just like ran to the other side. I'm not gonna have this conversation with Batman, and I don't usually carry cash, so unless you take a credit card. But no, I would just discuss it with the editor beforehand. You know, basically either work it into my budget, or just at least work it into the fact that they know that you know, I'm going to spend, you know, a couple bucks taking photos of people or whatever. I mean, the other thing too is that I don't necessarily, for that sort of thing, for people who are in that scenario, who that's what they're doing living wise, because you're not, especially if it's just a general story and not something that's specifically helping them. I feel like if I'm making money off of them, you know, I feel like they should get, it's uncomfortable to say like they should get a percentage, because then they're part of the story and there's a whole ethics question there, but like it's very uncomfortable. Like it would really depend on what the story is. It would probably be a tough story for me to even take. As you know, newspapers like the New York Post exist. Like there's a reason I never take for stock or for any other reason, I never take photos of homeless people. I don't take photos of buskers or anything like that, specifically because I know that if I upload in my server, upload in my wire or anything like that, the New York Post might use them to write a story about, oh, this guy makes $200 a day, you know, begging on the street, like they do like at least 3 times a year. Yeah, no, that guy deserves $300. $300 to deal with the people that scream in his face, or deal with him, you know, treat him like crap, for, you know, $1 or something like that, so he can survive. But anyway, but yeah,
we've definitely moved into a whole different category of conversation there, and maybe we'll save that topic for another day. Although, you know, our topic this evening is all about finances, so I think, you know, it's a relevant topic to talk about. You know, how do you pay to do your job? You know, should you pay to take pictures of people? But we'll save that topic for another day. We're gonna go to our gear topic right now. Nikon, I know your baby there, Zach, so you'll love talking about Nikon. Is coming out with a new camera. And again, we'll save the final finances for the final topic, and hopefully, you know, we'll get that last panelist on. Well, by the way, what is his specialty? Tell Ron, who is this?
He's a financial expert.
Financial expert. Okay,
he deals
great.
In all
your tease.
That's the most general term possible.
Will he show or won't he show? Stick to the end of the show to find out. All right, well, let's talk about the Nikon D850. This was just recently announced, being touted as a baby D5 in certain circles. Zach, you actually did a little write-up for us for AroundTheLens.com talking about this camera. So why don't you go ahead and introduce the topic? Kind of what intrigued you about it?
Yeah, so we know very, very little about it. We don't even have, at least last time I checked, there were some leaked photos, but especially Nikon, I usually try not to post leaked photos because a lot of times they're wrong. A lot of times they're like Photoshopped, so I don't even I usually don't even do it. I think you can probably go over to Nikon Rumors and probably see what you know. I mean, there's always some either European or Chinese, you know, camera store that post photos early, which I'm always confused on how they get photos this, you know, so early. But yeah, it's I mean, what we know about it is it's a full frame camera. It's going to shoot with 8K time lapses, which I'm not quite sure, 100% sure what that means.
Well, it's basically it can
some
take photos that have the same resolution as an 8K video.
Yeah. So, but no, I'm just saying. I mean, what does it mean for the camera? Like, is there actually video? I mean, like if it has capabilities. So it just, I don't know what that means other than the fact that it'll shoot 8K time lapses. So it'll be interesting to see what that actually means when it comes to the video, when it comes to kind of all the other specs that are really important. You know, I mean, because right now we don't really know. I mean, there's even question on whether it's a normal sensor camera, because with the prism is different than every other. The top of the camera is different than every other Nikon we've seen before. There's no pop-up flash, that much we know. So it's you know, it's on the D5 level professional camera. There's a big question about whether the sensor. There's Nikon patented a while ago. I don't know how long. I forget how long ago it was, but a curved sensor. Right. And so it'll be interesting to see whether we see that in there. And what does that mean for lenses? What does that mean for everything else? I mean, for me, the big thing that I really want to know, because I'm within the 6 months to a year, I need to upgrade at least one of my cameras. And the 850 sounds like really nice, because I know the 750 has some issues. Even though my experience with the D750 has been fantastic. I got some of the best photos I took at the Democratic and Republican national conventions on the 750. But if the 850 has some better video capabilities, which is what I really, really would like 4K without a short clip length, and you know, and other issues like that, and different higher frame rates and things like that, then I will definitely be interested. My understanding is also it has a movable or articulated LCD on the back, which is I think it's the first. I think it would be, other than the 750, I think it's the first professional DSLR from Nikon to have that. So that's good, because I loved that. When you're shooting over a top of you and trying to see what your LCD does, that's super nice to have. I was shooting with a 400 millimeter, I think F4 or F5, whatever it was, I forget, at the convention, trying to shoot over people's heads, and having the articulated screen on the 750 saved my life. It's the only way I knew anywhere where I was shooting. So that would be nice. But kind of everything else is up in the wind. I don't know where it sits when it comes to frame rate, shots, shots per second, which is obviously going to be one of those big things. Question people whether it's going to basically be, full frame, whether it's going to be a D5 or is it going to be a full frame D500.
Right.
Either way, I'm looking forward to it. The other big thing is, I beg Nikon to keep the price, the starting price point, as low as humanly possible. But
well, I mean, Petapixel is predicting a price point that's about $1,200 over the D810, and the D810 costs $2,800, so $4,000. Is that in your price range?
Well, then it's going to have some amazing specs, because that's the price range of a D4 right now. So. And if I'm going to pay $4,000 or whatever for a body, I'm going to just buy a D4.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is interesting. It doesn't look like it's going to be it'll probably be still a DSLR, not like a mirrorless camera, but we'll see. We'll see. I know the Sony Alpha Alpha 9, I believe, A9. Was their big flagship, and I think that's compared to the other big flagships, a lot less expensive and can do a lot of nice stuff. 20 frames per second, no shutter. That's pretty sweet. What do you guys think of the D850? Is this something you're going to pick up, Aaron?
I mean, there's no point in time that I'm going to have $4,000, so probably not. I mean,
no, Aaron, you're like me. So in 2 or 3 generations, when you buy it off of Tyler,
yes,
like I buy all my cameras off of CS,
right?
When you buy it off of Tyler, will you be interested in it?
Oh, absolutely. Like when I buy this camera, secondhand off someone else, while they're doing like holo photography, I'll finally be able to do this because
the D14,000.
Yes, I mean the trailer was great. And I looked at it and I was like, because Tyler's the one who sent it to me, and I was like, oh man, this would be like the coolest thing ever to have for the eclipse, because we're going down to Southern Illinois to shoot the eclipse, and I definitely want to do I definitely want to do a whole bunch of time lapses. But I don't think they're going to have it out in a month, and I'm not going to have $4,000. So maybe the next time an eclipse rolls around, I'll be able to.
You'll be able to give it to your children so that they can,
exactly,
like the Halley's Comet of cameras.
I think it's neat that this camera is doing the 8K time-lapse thing. I mean, back when I had the 5D Mark II or some other, cameras and stuff, you could do 4K video with a camera not capable of 4K video by just doing a time-lapse, for some of the cameras that had the higher sensor sizes that could accommodate that. Pretty much anything, around like 20 megapixels, 16 megapixel. So I think it's a neat thing. I think that's indicative of obviously the next step that we're going to start seeing these DSLRs with, video shooting capability go towards, which is, the 8K, the 6K and stuff like that. Ron, do you shoot Nikon even? I don't think even you shoot Nikon.
I'm a Canon guy, sorry.
No, don't apologize for that. Don't ever apologize for being Canon. Nothing wrong with that.
I'm not a fanboy or anything. It just happens to be what I shoot. But it does look like a very nice camera. I've read the specs. I looked over the articles, and I've listened to some reviews online, and it seems like a very capable camera. I don't see anything wrong with it. Again, I think they're going to sell a lot of them too. I think this is going to be a big seller for Nikon. I think it'll be something people are really going to
especially if it. Yeah. I mean, if it can do what the D5 can do at $2,500 less, oh, for sure, you're definitely going to see this taking over that market share. I don't know what's going to, make a potential buyer choose the D5 over this if they can get 90% of the features.
Right.
It'll probably be the frame. My bet is the frame rate, just because of the battery situation.
Okay.
Not frame rate. The frames per shots per second. That'll probably be the big difference. I'm trying to think of what else might be. The other thing too is that a lot of people do. I would prefer, if I could afford it, I do prefer the larger camera body for the grip. Having the grip and everything like that. And I've never had a good experience with battery grips as a separate thing. Either you buy the cheap ones and they fall off, which is always awkward, or you buy the crazy expensive ones from Nikon, where they're $300-400 for and having an extra battery and a little bit more, so your pinky doesn't swing around, and then I think the last camera I had it on was the D200, and it drained the battery. It was a known issue. So yeah,
right. Zach, you talk so highly about the articulating viewfinder, or the articulating screen from the Nikon, potentially from this Nikon camera. There's another camera that has a very nice screen that articulates out. I won't name it, but maybe I'll guess what it is.
Almost every consumer,
the 6D Mark II, I think. Right?
The other crazy thing is that every consumer Nikon camera also has a sensor that it's like what, like 3 times the larger than yours.
Hey, you know, it's not about the size; it's what you do with it.
Yeah, sure.
Anyways,
That's what Donald
it's all
Trump
about
said.
the rock of the boat. The rock of the boat. Anyways, my sensor is very girthy. Okay, listen, may not be the biggest, but it's very girthy. All right, moving on. This is a family podcast after all. Let's talk about finances. Ron, I'm sorry, I'm afraid your guy.
Yeah, well, I don't have any money. That's my. I don't know about you guys. I've got no money. That's my finance discussion.
So our discussion is we all broke.
We all broke.
So
we got no money.
This topic was initially your idea, Ron. So what do you want to talk about with regard to finances in relation to visual journalism exactly? What was your impetus for this topic?
I don't remember what started it. Something about planning for retirement. Planning for retirement. The fact that most of us are self-employed. Well, so to say, right?
Right.
You know, what are we doing to sack money away for the future? If we're not going to have a Social Security fund, what are we doing about it? And I had a guy lined up that was going to give us some ideas on what, you know, he has his clients do, so on and so forth. He didn't make it. So I guess we could talk about what we do. I married a doctor.
There you go. That's a valid retirement plan right there. What else are you doing to prepare for the future? What if that falls through? What's your backup plan, Ron?
Wow, that falls through.
I'm just saying.
I'll be dancing on the street corner for nickels in a monkey suit or something. I don't know, man.
Did you sign?
Well, if you do that, then you know that anytime somebody takes a picture of you, you'll get money from that.
I could demand $5 exactly.
Take a photo of a broke photographer.
Exactly.
Oh wow.
How about you, Aaron? What's your retirement plan?
Oh,
how are you managing your money?
Thank you.
Terribly, honestly. I mean, also, what money? I mean, let's be real. No, you know, I'm lucky enough that I have like a very, very small IRA. There's not much in it, but I've had it for since college, and it's because the job that I had while I was in college, it was basically like, oh, you know, if they matched us, right? So it was like, you know, you put X amount from your paycheck in, we'll match you. So that's where most of that came from. And it was like, you know, 25, like I was putting in $25 a month for 6 years or whatever. And then like every now and again, I'll kick that some money, but there really isn't all that much in there. And it will, so given the inflation rate and everything else, I'm probably better off with my other plan, which is just to bury cash and valuable metals in my backyard. In discrete places where I go so that I know that they're there. But no, like, unfortunately, I too don't really have a retirement plan. I mean, I got nothing on that, unfortunately. And it's sad but it's just a matter of like, I have to worry about day-to-day expenses. I have to worry about, you know, month-to-month expenses. And so the idea of like, what's going to happen to me 40 years from now, I mean, the way things are currently going, you know, I don't know if there's going to be anything left to retire to. I think we're all just going working, you know, until we go.
So just just a hellscape of America left over, and money won't be anything either. We'll be selling organs and you know, and whatever else to the Chinese and the Russians. So it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how I paid for my wedding, you know.
See, my plan is to make sure that nobody wants my organs.
Drink up.
Good plan.
By the way,
so we've actually talked about the whole, like, what is our retirement plan before on this show, and I think the majority was, I'm going to work till I die.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, you know, if you don't have a full-time job, if I didn't have a full-time job, what I would be doing is, you know, again, working, doing the freelance thing, you know, putting the money aside that's eventually going to go to taxes at the end of the year. But I mean, do none of you, well, probably Ron, but I mean, any of you explore the stock market at all, or any investment funds or anything? I mean, you know, working until you die is fun until you actually get to the point where you can't work anymore, and then you're like, oh geez, what do I do now?
No, I mean, you know, the IRA or whatever I have is actually based in the stock market. So, you know, I get like you know, a statement from them monthly or whatever, and it's like so it's kind of left up to them. Like I give, you know, I put an initial, you know, I had the stuff that I invested when I was in college, and then I made like a contribution to that when I had a little bit of extra money. After a long conversation with my dad, where he just essentially goaded me, going like, "You're never going to be able to retire ever," and I was like, "Okay, well, here's," you know, he's like, you know. So we worked it out with some guys he knew, and so I could see that. But like, I don't really understand the day-to-day workings of the stock market.
Nobody does. You're not alone.
So it's like that seems like, to me, it seems like having a third or fourth job to add on top of the jobs I already have as a freelancer that I might get paid for or might not get paid for. And so it seems like a gamble. Like, oh, okay, I can invest a bunch of time into this. And maybe I make some money off of it, or maybe I lose it all. You know, is it better? Or Ron, you might be able to answer this. Are my odds as good as they would be in a casino?
You know, they just had I think it was Radio Lab, I think it was, or This American Life, one of the podcasts. I don't know, Google Podcast Index Fund, something like that. They talked about how Planet Money podcast probably. They were talking about how most Americans are doing it all wrong, trying to go buy individual stocks when they should be doing is investing in a index fund that tracks the whole market. Let's say the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones average, whatever. And you have a lot better chance following an index than you would trying to pick an individual winning stock. Because if you look at the stock market performance over time, the stock market continues to go up. It goes up and down, but it does go up eventually. So you have a lot better chance of having a secure retirement by investing in the market as a whole through an index fund rather than trying to pick an individual stock. I've never done that. I always tried to pick winning stocks. For a while, I did very well for a while. One day, I remember I sold a bunch of stock, and I had a bunch of money there, and I was going to buy a house with it. I had enough money in cash to buy a house.
Oh my goodness.
My broker told me, Ron, you don't want to do that. I said, why not? He says, Ronnie, you spend that money now, you take the money out now, you're going to pay short-term capital gains. It's going to be taxed very heavily. You're going to regret it. Don't do it. What you need to do is put that money in some other stocks. And that way, after a year or two, you can take the money out and you have short-term or long-term capital gains, much lower rate, and you can spend the money then. And I lost all my money over the next year.
Jeez.
Oh, no.
Don't worry, though. He made a ton of money on the trades, and he made a ton of money.
There you go.
And that's all that matters.
That's all that really matters.
That's all that matters to him.
Yeah, that sucks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that would have been, if you invested that into property. I mean, yeah, there was the housing dip, but it's gotten back, and housing will eventually, get back to where it was, if not,
a lot of houses in
further.
Hawaii, it would have been fine.
Oh yeah, it'd probably be triple, that money probably. I invest in stocks, and I do the mutual funds. If you're interested in mutual funds or in the index funds, I should say, Vanguard is a great company for that. Just go to whatever, I mean, if you got some money, if you can get like, a couple $1,000s together, instead of buying it on that new camera you want so bad, go to one of these online brokerage houses and, buy stocks using, E-Trade or something. Like I use, actually I have free stock changes, whatever, purchases via Bank of America because I have, certain money into an investment fund with Merrill Edge. So that allows me to, make as many, I can make up to like 100 exchanges a month or something. I don't even touch that barely. I mean, I make a few, if that.
But Dave, I was told, was it 10 years ago now, that when Merrill Lynch and Bank of America combined, and part of the antitrust issues that they combined. They promised that they would be two separate entities under the same thing, but they wouldn't interact. I really remember that. It's weird how that changed over the time period. Sorry.
I guess they greased enough wheels to get what they wanted.
My
I don't know.
is, I don't trust. I've literally seen my grandfather went from like bread lines to being a millionaire. And so I've seen, unfortunately, there's not much of that left. So that's not a retirement fund for me. But I'm not a trust fund baby or anything. But I've seen brokers. I've seen the stocks. I followed it all. If I had the money, I probably could make a good amount of money, but I don't trust a damn lot of them to do anything. One of my people I've worked for lost $150,000 in one day because his pension fund was invested in Lehman Brothers. Oh
no.
I literally watched him walk in and find out that information in front of me and just sit down at the table. I mean, thankfully he was invested in other places and that wasn't his entire life savings. But I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I just don't, I don't ever foresee myself. I made a decision a long time ago that I kind of knew that I would never make over $50,000 a year, whatever the equivalent is as I get older. Because I decided to go into journalism.
Yeah.
But I guess that, I mean, I joke, but for me, it really is die early. Because I don't know what the option is unless I make that one big photo that sells or end up writing a book or doing a doc. I mean, that's my current thing, is that I see more money in documentary filmmaking happening, at least because then if residuals exist and kind of all these things exist, and because it's not like a photo where, you know, like I sold a couple photos from the convention, which is just last year, for 19 cents to AOL. Even the back catalog is no longer a thing. Like, I mean, you know, you have Magnum photographers who actually make a decent sum of money, you know, quarterly or whatever from back photos. And I don't see that happening. So I don't know. It's incredibly depressing. I don't want to think about it. The fact that like my generation, almost every single person I know is doing worse than the previous generation. Like literally every single one of my friends, every single one of them is doing worse than their parents. And that's not saying that their parents are doing any better. And I know it probably has to do with the fact that I know a lot of people that are in journalism. So whether it be entertainment journalism, photography, or whatever. So, you know, I don't know what that solution is. I mean, I'm hoping that I'll be able to, you know, in 10 years, write that best-selling book and be able to cash out at the right moment or something. I don't know. You know, I just turned 36 and my grandfather, well, I'm sorry, I don't want to make this really dark, but my grandfather died when he was 65. And as of right now, that's probably when my body will give out and I can't really do photography anymore. And so that'll be it. It's depressing.
All right, that sounds like a plan.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what, you know.
Well, I mean, let me ask this, Zach. You know, Zach, you know, what point do you say, well, I'll just get a normal job? You know, I'll get a job that like a standard 9-to-5 job. Was that something?
I've spent 16 years of my life doing nothing but print journalism, research, or photography. What is that job? Unless I mean, ironically, the best job that I see myself possibly getting is working for an investment firm, hedge funds, and doing investigative journalism for hedge funds, which is something that exists.
Mm-hmm.
And it pays really well. The problem is that, you know, I like my soul. And, you know, I mean, look, I'm not a socialist. I'm not like, I'm definitely anti-capitalist, but I'm not like communist or anything like that. But like, to work for people whose entire goal in life is to ruin other people's lives, because that's how you make money. That's how you make incredibly large sum of money, is that there's no billionaire that doesn't have corpses covering the ground that walk him to his office in the morning. There is no billionaire. J.K. Rowling is no longer a billionaire, and she was possibly the only one because she just wrote a couple books. So I don't know, to help in do them, and use the thing that investigative journalism, the thing that, like, you know, through investigative journalism, I've helped, you know, many millionaires lose lots of money, and that's one of the proudest things I've ever done in my life, is that I know for a fact that I helped one man lose $100 million through investigative journalism. And literally I hold that up as like a thing that I'm very proud of. Because he was taking that money away from African children's cholera medicine. And so I'm sure I'll probably be, hopefully he doesn't hear this because he'll sue me for libel, because he tried to do that to the Guardian and BBC. But yeah, so I mean, like, I not to be, you know, super dark, but I mean, I don't know what that solution is. You know, you listen to Susie Orman, you listen to all these people who say, you know, put savings aside or whatever. But I'm like, I have credit cards that have 28% interest. Should I put that in my savings account? That if I'm going to make the decision between where I'm going to put $100, am I going to put $100 in my savings account that's making 0.01% interest, or I'm going to pay off the credit card that I'm paying 20% interest, 28% interest a month, or my college loans that, you know, I can't do anything about. Literally, the previous generation of people in this country made the decision for my generation and our generation that we would not be able to go bankrupt, or we could not call bankruptcy on our student loans. Mm-hmm. So there's our generation. I mean, Dave, you made the right decision. You joined the military. That was the way to go. I some days regret not doing that, not doing my 20, because I'd be almost done by now and be able to retire and then do a career that I want to do and at least have that. But the previous generation, you know, made the decision that time and time again, whether it be through large student loans, whether it be high interest rates, whether it be no interest on savings accounts or anything like that, they've completely screwed us over. Yeah. And I don't see an outlet for the millennials, for the generation, whatever the hell we are, Aaron and I are in that kind of weird area. You too, Dave, you're the same age. You know, it's like, so like whatever that, not Gen X, but like the between age.
It's called, I don't know. There's a term for it, and I'll figure it out in a second.
Yeah, there is. I can't remember what it is.
I heard we're called the global generation, or Gen Y.
Yeah. But yeah,
so
I mean,
anyways,
like, not to be completely depressing, but I mean, you know, when we talk about this issue, is that other than doing commercial shoots, weddings, whatever, to try to leave our field of work, I don't know what the financial answer is, because even full-time professional photojournalists aren't getting enough money really to put money aside, in our generation at least. So yeah. I'm really sorry, but
all right. Well, this has been the Dower Hour with Zach and Dave.
It is, by the way, it is 9/11 right now. So
oh man, you had to go there.
By the way, I started.
It's 8:11.
By the way, I started today.
Yeah,
I bought my breakfast, and the total came out to $6.66. So
there you go.
Nice. Really... Everything's coming up roses for Zach. Anyways, we'll you know, the only thing I want to close with, you know, with Zach was when I was talking about, you know, finding a job. Would you ever find a job that wasn't at all related to what you do? So like, you know, doing something that made money but wasn't photojournalism, visual journalism, you know, related, but it gave you a steady income.
I don't know what that would be. The problem is I don't know how I could get that job, because I've spent my entire life doing this one thing. I've spent over a third of my life now doing this one thing. I'm the coal miner. I'm that coal miner, except I didn't make a decision to ruin my community's water supply and poison the air. I decided to take photos of newsworthy events.
Your cameras have a carbon footprint. Let me just tell you right now.
They do, and I'm sure there's some African children that died for the the metals that are inside my camera. But no one cares about me. The Donald Trump is not talking about how we need to find photojournalists new jobs, like the way that he's talking about miners. And that's ERS, not ORS. But so I don't know what we do.
I mean,
this is my brutally honest podcast with Zach Roberts.
I mean, I'll be real. I mean, I've only
had 2 drinks, by the way, only 2 drinks. So this is not.
I'm even one ahead of you. I mean, I've had to do a variety of different things. I mean, and so there are times where I've had to depart. Like, I mean, I've done campaign work. I have done. I worked for one of Chicago's. I worked for a charity for 5 years. I've also worked at bars. I've also worked. I mean, I've literally done like.
Oh no, I'm
every
doing
like, think of, which is shit. Well, what I'm saying is, it's shit. The fact that you. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Again, I'm just getting back to. I'm coming back from a different world.
We have rules here, Aaron. We have rules.
They are meant to be broken.
Yes, exactly. But it's it's really tough in that, like, here's what you want to do, right? And here's what you train to do, and here's what you love to do. And instead it's like, okay, well, you can do that, but you're not going to get paid a lot, so you have to go do all of these other things. Yeah. And I've been lucky in the fact that in the past couple of years I've been able to kind of like cross some weird lines and do some all sorts of weird work for different people that still encompasses what I love doing. Yeah. But there is a reason why. And this is a comment on the sad state of all journalism in general. There is a reason why for every one journalist there are 4 or 5 PR people for anything, be it a campaign, be it a corporation, whatever. And it's because no one was paying journalists, so everybody went into PR.
So here's the thing that, look at, I'm when I get back home, I've been doing this road trip of journalism. Drove down to Florida to cover, like, along the way and back and forth. Not only am I paying for this, not really a vacation, but just visiting a friend's for a birthday. But I have like 4 stories that I'm covering back and forth. When I get back, I'm going to sign up and drive Lyft. So that's going to take away a huge amount of my time to be able to do that. And that's a thing. And that's fine. And I shoot videos for a comic book website and also a comic book store. I have my side hustles as my sister, who has a full-time job working for Forbes out of college, says about her writing gigs. But the problem is that the side hustles don't get us anywhere near. If the discussion is retirement, the discussion is that financial stability. That doesn't get us anywhere near it. There's going to be some, I'm trying not to swear, some jerk in Silicon Valley that's going to come out with an app that's going to disrupt, which is the term that everybody loves, disrupt Uber and Lyft, and then Uber and Lyft are going to go away, and we won't have that anymore. And somehow people are, driverless cars are going to happen. So that side hustle is going to go away.
If I can interject real quick, did I
of course.
send the link to the Uber for photographers?
Yes.
We talked about that private. Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure that's out there.
We discussed it on the show at least. So yeah.
But I mean, there we go. I mean, already.
Yeah. No, I heard about that. It's a pretty neat idea. Maybe it'll be something that is useful for other, struggling photographers or whatever in the world, in the future, if it catches on.
Make $50 on their cell phone. I mean, the problem is that, again, they're, all these all these fixes for photojournalists to make extra money or whatever, they're all not only cell phone based, so there's no actual way to do. It's not even quality. I'm not even, I'm kind of over that game to an extent. To talk about like the difference between you shooting with a DSLR or shooting with your cell phone. It's the fact that there's no space for actual real journalism when all you're doing is uploading a file, a video file of a fire, of a burning building or something like that, to a server, and then some local news station is buying it. That journalism dies. And and what I'm actually finding myself doing more and more is actually podcasts, because I'm talking about journalism ethics more than I'm doing actual journalism. Unfortunately, I'm turning into my own little on the media thing, which is what part of this show as well. On the media, about is a podcast on NPR. Highly recommend it to watch it. But I don't know where this field and kind of all of us go if we don't already have a retirement plan or didn't have that long-term job or the military or whatever else, for putting enough money aside that you can actually retire on. I mean, other than hitting the lotto, and whether the metaphorical lotto in getting that one gig that pays really well, or getting has residuals or whatever else. I don't know. I mean, weddings is all these side gigs are really great great to solve the debt solution. But if we're talking retirement, there's not a lot of good answers for our field.
I was in fact
Somebody say something funny, please.
Okay, so I can get there. So at the
hey guys, quick joke for y'all. Hey, at some point we're all gonna die. Ba-ba-ba.
Come on, dance.
No, the person who was my table mate while I was selling, because part of my trip to the Gathering of the Juggalos involved selling books to Juggalos, which was interesting, fun. But my was also a photographer. And so we were like splitting time, going to run out and shoot or whatever. But his side hustle that he actually makes it, like he's mostly a real estate photographer and a wedding photographer, but he does some other things as well. But his like side hustle is he goes to like Goodwill and whatnot and buys stuff on the cheap and resells it for a hell of a lot of money on eBay. And he was like, "Oh no, man, I'm making a ton." He's like, "I'm making enough money on this where I'm gonna have to hire somebody to help me out to do the sorting of things and whatnot." So I guess the new side hustle is going to be going through old people's, people's old trash, or giveaways or whatever, and finding the thing that's really, really rare and then turning it around and selling it for a bunch of money to just the right person. But
no, Aaron, the side hustle is going to be working for that guy.
Yeah,
that's too true. Yeah,
that's going to be the side hustle. Be like, hey, I can help you sort through trash. But all right, well, let's wrap up this week's show. We're not going to have our special super duper finance guru on tonight. Maybe we'll have him on sometime in the future, Ron. But anyways, again, I want to say thanks, Aaron, for coming and joining us tonight and having a little lively, upbeat visual journalism discussion. I mean, this is the place you go for that kind of stuff. Anyways, Aaron, is there anything you want to plug before we sign out?
Yeah, you know what?
Sign off.
I'm going to go ahead and just plug Microcosm Publishing, since I spent half my time at the Gathering selling their books. They are an independent DIY publisher out of Portland, Oregon. The website is microcosmpublishing.com, and you can literally find anything and everything to help you grow your own small world, from vegan cooking to how to travel the country on very cheap, how to dwell portably, as well as zines, shirts, patches, and comics about Henry Rollins and Glenn Danzig living together as best friends, roommates, and maybe something more.
Awesome. All right, great. Ron or Zach, anything you guys want to plug before we sign off? Other than aroundthelens.com, the website that you love and know so well?
not only aroundthelens.com, but if you want to see my foreign reporting for the Philippines, you can tune into Net25 in the Philippines, or online by saying google.com/how do I watch Net25 online, and watch me there.
No, you're supposed to say, okay, Google. And everyone's device goes off. Hopefully.
Everybody's phone's going to go nuts, right?
Alexa.
Order toothpaste.
Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby. All right, I hope I messed up all your devices now. All right, Zach, anything from you? Anything new? Anything you want to check out? Zach is gone. He was a great co-host, but we'll miss him. I don't know where he is right now. Anyways, for Ron Hamilton, Zach Roberts, I've been your host, David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 85. Thank you so much for joining us, and we are out.